The first thing I noticed was that the note was crooked. That sounds ridiculous, I know, but when you've lived in the same house for 26 years, you notice when something is out of place. A picture frame shifted half an inch, a cabinet left open, a yellow square of paper stuck to the bottom corner of your bedroom mirror. I stepped closer. There were 7 words on it. "You're not my mother. You're on your own." I read it once. Then again. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't march downstairs and start yelling into an empty house. I peeled the note off the mirror, folded it in half, and slid it into my purse. Then I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. "Mary Ann, are you in the office today?" There was a pause. "Until 5. "Diane, what happened?" I looked out the bedroom window. Lauren's SUV was already gone. I need to stop something. That morning had started over coffee and blueberry muffins. Lauren had come by around 9. She and her husband Mark were buying a house in Dublin just northwest of Columbus. Better school district, more room for Sophie, finished basement, the kind of kitchen people apparently need now if they intend to survive modern civilization. I'd promised them $85,000 toward the down payment. It was a big gift, I knew that. But I could afford it, and at the time it made me happy to help. Lauren had spread the listing photos across my kitchen island like blueprints for the White House. "Look at this pantry," she said. I leaned closer. "That pantry is bigger than my first apartment." She laughed. For a while, everything was normal. Then I noticed the bedrooms. They're all upstairs. Lauren glanced at the floor plan. "Yeah? No guest room on the first floor." She looked at me. "Why?" I shrugged. Just thinking ahead. If I ever get a knee replaced at 75, I may not be thrilled about climbing stairs. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. "Diane. What I need you not to start doing that. Doing what? Planning your future around us." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. Then I realized she wasn't. "Lauren, I asked about a bedroom." "I know, but I watched my mother take care of Grandma for years. It wrecked everything. Her marriage, her finances, all of it. Her biological mother had gone through a brutal stretch caring for her own mother through dementia. I knew that. I'd watched some of it from a distance. I'm not asking you to take care of me. I'm just saying Mark and I can't be your retirement plan." I stared at her for a second. Then I said, "Well, that's good because I didn't submit an application." Normally, Lauren would have laughed. She didn't. Instead, she gathered the listing papers into a neat stack. "I just think boundaries are important." "So do I." She nodded, grabbed her purse, and left 10 minutes later. I thought that was the end of it. Then I went upstairs and found the note. That was different. People say things badly in the middle of arguments. I've done it. Robert did it. Lord knows Lauren had done it since she was 13. But writing something down takes another kind of intention. Lauren had left my kitchen, walked upstairs, found a pen, written those words, and stuck them on my mirror where she knew I would see them. I had been in her life since she was 10 years old. Braces, parent-teacher conferences, driver's ed, college applications, her wedding dress fitting, the night Sophie was born. I never asked Lauren to call me Mom. Her mother was alive, and I respected that. But after 31 years, I'd assumed I was something more than a woman who happened to marry her father. Apparently, that assumption had an expiration date. Mary Ann's office was in Worthington in one of those brick buildings with tasteful landscaping and a lobby that always smelled faintly like coffee and printer paper. She read the note without changing expression. Then she set it on the desk. "What exactly do you want to stop the house money?" "The $85,000, yes." "Has it transferred?" "No." "Has the lender received the gift letter?" "Yes." She leaned back. "Then we can notify them that the gift is being withdrawn before funds are transferred." "Good." She didn't move. I knew that look. Mary Ann had been our estate attorney for nearly 15 years. "Say it. Don't change your will today." "I didn't ask to. You were going to." I almost smiled. I was thinking about it. "Of course you were." She tapped the note with one finger. "You've had the same basic estate plan for years. Don't rewrite 30 years of family history because you're furious on a Tuesday morning. That irritated me because it was sensible. I'm not furious. Diane. All right, I'm furious, good. Now we're making progress. I looked down at my hands. Stop the gift. She nodded. And pull my estate documents. That I'll do. I left about 40 minutes later. In the parking lot, I sat in my car without starting it. At first I thought I was angry because Lauren had insulted me. But that wasn't quite it. The part that hurt was realizing she had separated everything I had done for her over the years from the word mother, as if those things had nothing to do with each other. I wasn't entitled to her future care, I knew that. What I hadn't known was that she apparently believed she was entitled to mine. The next morning I was standing in my kitchen pouring coffee when the front door opened hard enough to hit the wall. Lauren came in holding her phone. Her face was pale. What did you do? I set the coffee pot down. The lender called, she said. They said your gift funds are gone. They are. You can't just do that. I looked at her. Then I said the only thing that felt honest. I stopped planning your future around me. Lauren stood on the other side of my kitchen island like I'd just confessed to stealing her car. What does that even mean? It means exactly what I said. Mom, she stopped herself. It was so quick I almost wondered if I'd imagined it. Then she corrected course. Diane, we close in 6 days. I didn't know that. You knew we were buying the house. I knew you were buying it. I didn't know you were 6 days from closing. She shoved her phone onto the counter and rubbed both hands over her face. The lender needs proof of the funds. Without your $85,000, our numbers change. Everything changes. I poured the rest of my coffee. It was an absurdly ordinary thing to do while someone was accusing me of blowing up her life, but I needed my hands occupied. Can you still buy the house? That's not the point. It seems fairly close to the point. She glared at me. We made decisions based on your promise. And there it was, the first thing she'd said that morning that I couldn't simply dismiss. Because she was right. I had promised. I hadn't signed a contract to buy Lauren a house, but I'd sat at that same kitchen island 2 months earlier and said, your dad would have loved that neighborhood. Let me help. $85,000. Not pocket change even for someone comfortable. You're right, I said. Lauren blinked. I am. I promised you the money. That seemed to throw her off more than an argument would have. Then put it back. No. Her mouth tightened. So you admit you promised it, but because I told you I won't take care of you when you're old, you're pulling it. That isn't what happened. That's exactly what happened. No, Lauren. You decided I was asking you to become my caregiver because I asked about a downstairs bedroom. You know what I meant. I know what you assumed. She grabbed her phone. This is unbelievable. Then she called Evan, right there in front of me. My son answered on speaker after 4 rings. Hey. Your mother just pulled $85,000 from our house 6 days before closing. Silence. Then Evan said, good morning to you too. Lauren did not appreciate that. By 6 that evening he was sitting at my kitchen table eating leftover meatloaf. Lauren had left hours earlier. Evan was 30, broad-shouldered like his father, with Robert's unfortunate habit of opening the refrigerator every 20 minutes as if new food might have materialized. He'd read the note twice. This is awful. Thank you. No, I mean it. She shouldn't have written that. He took another bite, then pointed his fork at me. But, I sighed. There it is. If you clearly promised them the money and they signed for a house based on it pulling it overnight is pretty rough. You sound like Mary Ann. That's terrifying. Doesn't she bill $400 an hour, something like that? Then I'll send you an invoice. I almost laughed. Almost. Then he got serious. I'm not saying give it back. I'm saying don't convince yourself this is purely some calm, principled boundary. You're mad. I am. Okay. There was something irritating about adult children when they started making sense. I told him about the conversation with Lauren. Then, without really meaning to, I started talking about money. The $14,000 Robert and I gave Lauren and Mark when Mark was laid off. The private school tuition we covered for Sophie for 2 years. The car loan Lauren repaid until she apparently decided 6 payments short was close enough. A furnace repair, trips, childcare. Evan listened. When I finished, he said, "You know Dad always bailed her out." "I know. He did it with me too. Not like Lauren." "No, at least he was honest." He pushed his plate away. "And after Dad died, you kept doing it. That stayed with me. Robert had been gone almost 3 years. I still sometimes expected to hear his garage door at 5:30. He loved both his children, but Lauren had always activated something in him. Maybe guilt from the divorce. Maybe because she spent her childhood moving between houses. Whatever it was, Robert hated watching her struggle. Apparently, I'd taken over the job without noticing. 2 days later, Mark called. Could I stop by? He came alone. That told me plenty. We sat on the back porch with iced tea while August heat pressed against the screens. "I want to apologize," he said. "You didn't write the note." "No, but I should have said something sooner." About what? He stared into his glass. "The money." I waited. "When you offered the 85, I told Lauren I wasn't comfortable counting on it until it was actually in the account. That sounds reasonable." She said I was being ridiculous. He hesitated. She said it was basically her dad's money anyway. I didn't say anything. Mark looked miserable. "I probably shouldn't have told you that." "No, you probably should have." Robert and I had been married 31 years. For 24 of those years, I worked in hospital administration. My paychecks helped cover the mortgage. My retirement accounts were mine. We invested together. We saved together. After Robert died, what passed to me as his wife became mine. I had never thought I needed to explain that to Lauren. Apparently I did. Mark cleared his throat. "We can probably still close." That surprised me. "How?" "We sell some investments, put more down ourselves, take the higher mortgage and forget the kitchen renovation for a while. So you won't lose the house, probably not. But," he gave a tired smile, "Lauren is going to discover what cabinets actually cost." That got a laugh out of me. Then he told me they had 4 days left to straighten out the financing. After he left, I sat on the porch for a long time. The house was quiet. Robert and I had bought it when Lauren was 15. Evan learned to ride a bike in that driveway. Lauren had gotten ready for prom upstairs. Years later, she brought newborn Sophie through the front door wrapped in a pink blanket. I'd never kept a ledger. That was the problem. Not because I should have counted every dollar. Because somewhere along the way, generosity had stopped feeling like something I chose and started feeling like something Lauren expected. I went inside and called Marianne. She answered on the second ring. "Please tell me nobody has set anything on fire. Not yet. Excellent start. I want to see my will." There was a short silence. To change it, I looked across the living room at Robert's old leather chair. "No," I said. "Not yet." Then I thought about what Mark had told me. Dad's money. I want to understand what I've been promising without realizing it. Marianne had my will open on her desk when I arrived Friday morning. No dramatic stack of papers, no mahogany conference room with people whispering about millions. Just Marianne, her reading glasses, 2 cups of coffee, and a document I hadn't looked at carefully since Robert died. She turned it toward me. "Before we start changing numbers, I want to ask you something. I haven't said I want to change anything. You drove here at 8:30 in the morning. I've been awake since 5. That's not the defense you think it is." I gave her a look. She smiled and took off her glasses. "If Robert had never existed, would Lauren still be in your will?" That caught me. What kind of question is that? A useful one. I looked down at the page. Yes, you didn't even think about it. I didn't need to. Why? Because she's been in my life since she was 10. Marianne nodded. Okay, different question. Would she receive exactly what Evan receives? That answer didn't come. For years, Robert and I had treated the children equally in our estate planning. Not identically in every little thing, but close enough that neither one would ever have reason to count. After specific provisions, the bulk of what remained would eventually be divided between Lauren and Evan. 50-50. It had always seemed fair. Now I wasn't sure what fair meant. "I don't know," I finally said. Good. Not knowing is better than making a permanent decision because you want somebody to hurt for 20 minutes. That annoyed me because once again she was right. We talked for another half-hour. Mostly Marianne asked questions and I discovered I didn't have answers. How much did I realistically need if I lived to 90? Did I want either child managing my estate? What did I want to leave Sophie? Was I treating Lauren equally because that reflected my wishes? Or because Robert and I had decided it decades ago, and I'd never reconsidered it? I left without changing a thing. That afternoon I went looking for an old beneficiary statement Marianne wanted me to check. Robert had kept financial paperwork in the bottom drawer of his desk, organized according to a system only he understood. Taxes were labeled by year, insurance was alphabetized. Everything else seemed to follow the ancient filing principle of, I'll remember where I put it. I found 3 expired warranties, the manual for a dishwasher we no longer owned, and a receipt from a tire shop dated 2011. Then I found a folder marked Estate Notes. Most of it was ordinary. A list of questions for Marianne, a reminder to update Evan's address after he moved, a handwritten note about charitable gifts. Near the back was one line in Robert's handwriting. Talk to Lauren about inheritance assumptions. She keeps talking about what she'll get someday. I've let this go too long. I sat down in his chair. That was it. No secret letter. No hidden instructions. Just a reminder Robert had apparently written to himself and never acted on. I knew exactly why. My husband could negotiate a car price down to the floor mats, argue with an insurance company for 45 minutes, and once send back a steak 3 separate times. But disappointing Lauren. That man would rather negotiate with the IRS. I ran my thumb over his handwriting. For years I'd told myself Robert helped Lauren because he was generous. He was. But there had been guilt mixed into it too. His first marriage ended when Lauren was 6. She spent years moving between parents, carrying a little purple overnight bag from one house to another. Robert never quite stopped trying to compensate for that. And maybe after he died, neither had I. My phone buzzed. Lauren. For a second I considered letting it sit. Then I saw it was a text. I'm sorry about the note. I shouldn't have written it. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it. Because there was no excuse attached. No, but you made me angry. No, you misunderstood me. Just an apology. I typed thank you, then erased it. I wrote, I appreciate you saying that. She came over the following afternoon. For once, neither of us sat at the kitchen island. We took our coffee into the living room. Lauren looked tired. Mark told me he came here. He did. He also told me what he said. I waited. She rubbed her thumb against the side of her mug. I shouldn't have called it Dad's money. No, I know you worked. That isn't really the issue, I know. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she told me more about her grandmother. I knew the broad version. I hadn't known Lauren had been 16 when her grandmother first wandered out of the house at night. Her mother spent years managing doctors, medications, bills, emergencies. It scared me, Lauren said. Mom basically disappeared into taking care of Grandma. Everything became about the next crisis. That sounds awful. It was. So when you mentioned needing a room someday, You panicked, she nodded. I could understand that. Understanding didn't make the note disappear, but it made Lauren look less like a 41-year-old woman being cruel and more like somebody who had stepped on an old emotional landmine. You were allowed to tell me no, I said. I know. You were even allowed to tell me no to something I hadn't asked yet. That earned the smallest smile. For the first time all week, I thought maybe we were going to be okay. Then Lauren sighed. I just don't understand why what Dad left us suddenly depends on whether you're mad at me. I looked at her. She must have seen something change in my face. What Dad left us? Her eyes dropped. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? I mean eventually. Obviously, there was that word. Eventually. As though my life were an unusually long waiting period. Lauren, your father left what he wanted to leave when he died. I know. What I own now is mine. I know that too. But she said it too quickly. And suddenly I understood something I hadn't before. Lauren's apology was real. So was her affection for me. And so was her belief that some portion of my money already belonged to her. Those things could all exist in the same person. That made this much harder than simply deciding she was selfish and walking away. After she left, I called Marianne. "Don't change anything yet. I wasn't planning to without you." "I know." I looked at Robert's handwritten reminder on the table beside me. "But I think I finally understand what I'm trying to fix." Carol called me Sunday afternoon. Robert's older sister had a way of getting to the point so quickly that sometimes you felt as if you had joined the conversation halfway through. "Lauren says you pulled the house money." I was standing at the sink rinsing a coffee mug. "Hello to you too. Hello. Did you?" "Yes, and now you're changing the will. I'm reviewing it." That sounds like lawyer language for yes. I set the mug down. "Carol, I haven't signed anything." There was a pause, then her voice softened. "Robert always said the kids would be treated equally." I leaned against the counter. "Robert also said I should spend every dime before I die just to annoy them." Carol snorted. "He did say that, for years. Usually after Evan asked to borrow the truck. That helped for about 3 seconds. Then she got serious again. Diane, don't do something permanent because Lauren said something ugly. I'm trying not to. I mean it. So do I. What I wanted her to say was Lauren was wrong. Of course you're her mother. Of course that money is yours. Instead, Carol said Robert would hate seeing this family split over money. That hurt more than I expected, because I could hear him saying the same thing. Robert hated family conflict. Unfortunately, his solution had usually been to prevent conflict by making sure nobody stayed unhappy long enough to have one. Especially Lauren. Over the next week, Carol barely called. That sounds minor until you understand that after Robert died, she and I spoke 3 or 4 times a week. We had lunch every other Thursday. We complained about our knees-traded recipes neither of us followed and discussed our adult children as if we were running a small and badly managed corporation. Her distance made me question myself all over again. So I did something I normally hate. I invited everybody to dinner. Lauren, Mark, Evan, Carol. Sophie came too because leaving her with a sitter for what was obviously a family gathering would have felt strange. I made pot roast, which was Robert's favorite meal, and in hindsight, probably an emotional choice I could have examined more carefully. Evan arrived first carrying a pie from the grocery store. You baked, I transported. Heroic! I felt this family needed dessert in case the mediation collapsed. This is not a mediation. He looked toward the dining room. Sure. Carol came next. Lauren and Mark arrived 10 minutes later with Sophie. Nobody mentioned the house. Nobody mentioned the note. For 25 minutes we discussed school traffic on I-270, and Carol's neighbor who had apparently been putting garbage cans out on the wrong day for 6 consecutive years. Then the plates were mostly empty. Lauren put down her fork. I don't understand why we're doing this. Because I'm tired of hearing 4 different versions of the same argument. I haven't told 4 versions. Carol looked at her. You told me at least 2. Mark suddenly became very interested in his water glass. I took a breath. I don't want anybody arguing through phone calls. If we're going to talk about this, we'll talk about it together. Lauren folded her arms. Fine. Evan looked at me. Should I pass out name tags, Evan? What I'm trying to keep morale up. Even Lauren almost smiled. Then she looked at me. You want to know why I reacted the way I did? I'd like to understand it. Her face changed. Not angry, exactly. Older. You came into my life when I was 10. I know. I hated you for the first 2 years. I know that too. You always acted like it was normal kid stuff. I thought it mostly was. It wasn't. The room went quiet. Lauren looked down at the table. When Dad married you, I was still stupid enough to think he and Mom might get back together. You weren't stupid. I was 10. She shrugged. Then Evan came along and suddenly Dad had a wife and a baby and this whole new family. Evan glanced at her. I was an infant. My contribution was limited. Not everything needs a joke. I know. He went quiet. Lauren continued. I'd come here for the weekend and there'd be baby stuff everywhere. Pictures, toys. You two looked like a family. I felt like luggage. That landed. Not because it was entirely fair. Because some part of it probably was. I remembered 12-year-old Lauren arriving Friday nights carrying the same purple overnight bag. I remembered being exhausted with a newborn. I remembered telling myself she was moody because she was becoming a teenager. Maybe I had missed things. "I'm sorry," I said. Lauren looked surprised. "For what?" "For not understanding that better." She swallowed. "I'm not saying you treated me badly. I know. You were strict. You needed it." That got a tiny laugh. But sometimes she said I never knew whether I was your kid or Dad's kid who happened to be there. I could have defended myself. I had plenty of evidence. School plays, dentist appointments, college visits, her wedding. But evidence wasn't the point. I probably didn't always know how to make that clear, I said. Carol looked at me across the table. For the first time in days, her expression softened. Then Evan asked the question none of us had planned. "If Mom isn't your mother, why do you think you should inherit from her like a daughter?" Lauren turned toward him. "Because Dad built half of it." The room stopped. Even she seemed surprised by how quickly the answer came. I put my napkin beside my plate. "Lauren." "What he did. No, your father and I built our life together. I know that." "Do you?" "I'm not saying you didn't work." "Then what are you saying?" She looked frustrated. "I'm saying Dad wanted me taken care of." I nodded. "So did I." She frowned. "That's the part you keep missing." Nobody spoke. I could feel Robert in that room without anybody saying his name. Years of him solving problems before Lauren had to sit with them. Years of me helping because helping felt like love. Carol finally said, "Maybe we're mixing too many things together." "We are," I said. "Money and family." "And guilt," Evan added. Mark looked at him. "And history. That too." The conversation went another half hour. It didn't end neatly. Nobody stormed out. Nobody hugged either. Lauren and Mark left with Sophie around 8:30. I was loading plates into the dishwasher when my phone rang. Sophie. I smiled automatically. "Hey, sweetheart." Her voice was small. "Grandma die." Something in it made me turn off the water. "What is it?" There was a pause. "If Mom isn't your daughter anymore, am I still your granddaughter?" I closed my eyes. "Oh, honey." "I heard some of it," I figured. "Are you mad at me too?" "No, absolutely not. Even if you're mad at Mom, you and your mother are two different people." Another pause. "So I can still come over. Try stopping me." She gave a little laugh. After we hung up, I stood there with the phone in my hand. That call changed something. Until then, part of me had still been thinking in simple arithmetic. Lauren hurt me. Maybe Lauren gets less. Maybe Evan gets more. But Sophie had nothing to do with any of it. And neither did whatever future grandchildren might come along. I didn't want my will to become a scoreboard. The next morning I drove back to Marianne's office. She took one look at me and pulled out a legal pad. "I'm guessing we're past reviewing." "We are." "What do you want?" I sat down. For the first time since I found that note, I knew. I want to stop confusing inheritance with love. Marianne picked up her pen. "Okay." Then she looked at me. "Tell me what that looks like." Before I changed my will, I dealt with the $85,000. That mattered to me. I could tell myself all day long that Lauren had no legal claim to a gift I hadn't transferred, but legality wasn't the whole question. I'd made a promise before she left that note. She and Mark had made decisions based on it. So I called Mark. "I'm still willing to give you $25,000. There was silence. Then he said, "Diane, are you sure?" "Yes, I appreciate that. Don't thank me until you tell your wife." He laughed once. "Yeah. I was hoping you'd do that part. No chance." Lauren called 40 minutes later. 25. "That's what I said. You promised 85, I know. Then why 25? Because I'm trying to separate the promise I made from what happened afterward. 25 feels fair to me. To you." "Yes, Lauren, it's my money. At some point, what feels fair to me has to enter the discussion." She went quiet. Then I heard Mark in the background. "Lauren, stop." She must have covered the phone because his next words were muffled. Then clearer. "She doesn't owe us a house." The call ended shortly afterward. They didn't lose the house. Mark sold some investments. They increased the mortgage, canceled the kitchen renovation, and decided the original cabinets could continue their brave struggle for another few years. It wasn't painless. It also wasn't ruin. 2 days later, I sat across from Marianne with the new estate documents between us. I'd spent hours thinking about what I actually wanted instead of what would make Lauren sorry. That distinction had taken me longer than I'd like to admit. The new plan didn't cut her out. It didn't hand her old share to Evan either. I increased the amount reserved for my own retirement and future care. Evan would receive a defined portion. Lauren would receive a smaller but still meaningful one. A substantial amount would eventually fund trusts for my grandchildren, including Sophie. I also kept charitable gifts Robert and I had discussed for years. And neither child would control the estate. Marianne had recommended an independent professional executor. I liked that more every time I thought about it. No popularity contests after the funeral, I said. That's not the technical legal term. It should be. Marianne turned the final page toward me. Before you sign, I want you to hear me clearly. This isn't a gesture. This becomes your estate plan unless you choose to change it later. I understand. Are you doing this because you're angry I thought about it? Partly. She waited. But I'm not signing because I'm angry. That seemed to satisfy her. I signed. There was no thunder. No sudden feeling of victory. Just my name in blue ink at the bottom of a page. Oddly enough, what came afterward was harder. Carol found out I'd changed the estate plan. I never learned whether Lauren told her or she simply put the pieces together. She called me. You actually did it. I did. Robert wanted them equal. Robert isn't the one who has to live on this money for the next 30 years. That isn't what I meant. I know, she sighed. I just don't recognize this, Diane. That hurt. What don't you recognize, you changing things after he's gone? I almost said something sharp. Instead, I told her, they're my documents, Carol, I know. But she sounded disappointed anyway. For almost 3 weeks, we barely spoke. I hated it. More than once, I opened Marianne's number on my phone and stared at it. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe Robert really would have hated what I'd done. One evening, Evan came over and found me sitting at the kitchen table with the estate folder in front of me. You changing it again? I don't know. He pulled out a chair. Why Carol thinks I'm betraying your father. Aunt Carol also thinks putting raisins in potato salad is acceptable. This is slightly more serious. Debatable. I smiled despite myself. Then he leaned forward. If you think the plan is wrong, change it. And if I don't, then don't change it because Aunt Carol is mad. That was annoyingly sensible. Again. Apparently I had raised one child specifically to interfere with my bad decisions. Lauren came over the following Tuesday, alone. She stood in my living room for a moment before sitting on the edge of the sofa. I heard you signed everything. Yes. So that's it, for now. She looked at me. You punished me. I could have denied it. Instead I said, at first, yes. She frowned. When I stopped the house money overnight, I was furious. You were right about that. That seemed to surprise her. Then why didn't you restore all of it? Because once I calmed down, I realized the original arrangement wasn't healthy either. She shook her head. So the will isn't punishment. No, it sure feels like it. Lauren, I'm 60. I could live another 30 years. I need to plan as though I'm actually going to be here for them. She looked away. Dad would hate this. That one found its mark. I let it. Maybe he would. Her eyes came back to mine. I think she'd expected me to defend myself. Your father hated disappointing you, I said. He loved you very much. Sometimes those were the same thing. Her jaw tightened. You make him sound weak. No, I make him sound human. So now I'm some spoiled kid he created. No, you're a 41-year-old woman. Which means what happens next belongs to you. For a while, all I could hear was the clock in the hallway. Then Lauren asked, did you ever really think of me as your daughter? The question was so quiet I almost missed it. Since you were 10. She looked toward the stairs, toward the hallway that led to my bedroom. That note hurt because I need you to take care of me someday, I said. No, I can make plans for myself. I paused. It hurt because you thought 31 years could be erased in 6 words. Lauren stared at her hands. Finally, she said I shouldn't have written it. I waited. No excuse came. No but, just that. No, I said quietly. You shouldn't have believed it. Her eyes filled. Mine probably did too, but we didn't hug. She picked up her purse and left. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after dark. I'd protected my money. I'd made a plan that finally felt like mine. And I had no idea whether my relationship with Lauren would survive it. That's the part people don't tell you about boundaries. Sometimes doing what you believe is right doesn't feel powerful. Sometimes it just makes the house very quiet. 4 months later, Lauren sent me a picture of Mark standing in their new kitchen with a screwdriver in one hand and a cabinet door in the other. The caption said, "Your son-in-law has discovered homeownership. Please send thoughts and prayers." I stared at it for a second before laughing. Then I wrote back, "Tell him the cabinets were free." He paid $400,000 for the walls around them. 3 dots appeared. He says, "You're not helping." That was about as normal as Lauren and I had been since the argument. They'd closed on the house. Not comfortably, but they did it. They sold some investments, took a slightly larger mortgage, and postponed nearly every renovation Lauren had originally planned. The avocado-colored tile in the upstairs bathroom survived another year despite apparently being a personal insult to her. More important, they did it without another check from me. Evan got the same message. He came over one Sunday while I was sorting financial papers and found me updating a list for my planner. "I want you to know something," I said. He opened my refrigerator. "Should I be worried?" "Probably not." "That's reassuring. You shouldn't plan your future around an inheritance from me either." He closed the refrigerator. "There goes my yacht. You get seasick in a bathtub." He considered that. "There goes my extremely stationary yacht." I laughed. Then I told him I was serious. "I know," he said. "I'm fine, Mom. I mean it. I don't want either of you waiting for money that might not be there." He nodded. "Then spend it, not all of it." "Fine. Leave enough for sandwiches after the funeral." Evan. Good sandwiches. That conversation mattered more than he knew. Because somewhere in all the fighting with Lauren, I had worried that I was simply finding a sophisticated way to favor my biological child. I didn't want that. I wanted both of them to build lives that didn't depend on mine ending. So I started planning mine. I met with a financial planner. We went through long-term care costs, retirement income, healthcare directives, powers of attorney, and whether keeping a 4-bedroom house made sense forever. Apparently, aging involves an astonishing amount of paperwork for something your body handles automatically. I wasn't planning to move anytime soon, but for the first time since Robert died, I had answers to practical questions. If I needed help, there would be money for it. If I eventually wanted a smaller house, I could buy one. If I needed long-term care, I had options. Lauren wouldn't be my retirement plan, neither would Evan. Oddly, once I chose that for myself, it stopped sounding like rejection. Sophie kept coming over. That part never changed. Every couple of Saturdays she'd spend the afternoon with me, usually arriving with enough belongings to suggest she was fleeing the country. Lauren never used her as leverage. I gave her credit for that. Then, one Saturday in January, Lauren dropped Sophie off and didn't immediately get back into her car. She stood in my driveway with her hands tucked into her coat pockets. "Do you have coffee? I have coffee. Whether it's good coffee is between you and God." She smiled. "Can I have some?" We sat at the kitchen table. For a while we talked about nothing important. Sophie's school, Mark's cabinets, Carol's ongoing war with her neighbor's garbage cans. Then Lauren wrapped both hands around her mug. "I've been seeing somebody." I raised an eyebrow. "A therapist." "Oh." Mark suggested it. That was brave of Mark. She laughed. "Yes. Very." Then she became serious. "I've been talking about Mom, Dad, you." I stayed quiet. Lauren told me she'd started understanding how much of her anger had begun before I ever entered the picture. Her parents' divorce, moving between 2 homes, her mother's instability, then Robert marrying me and having Evan. I think I spent years believing Dad's money was proof I still belonged to him, she said. That was the first time she'd put it that way. And after he died, she continued, I guess I transferred that to you. I didn't rush to reassure her. She wasn't asking me to. I've thought about the note a lot. So have I. I know. She looked down. When I wanted to hurt you, that was always the easiest thing. What was telling you you're not my mother? There wasn't much to say to that. Lauren looked toward the living room where Sophie was stretched across the rug doing homework. I knew it would hurt because... She stopped. Because she looked back at me. Because you spent most of my life proving otherwise. That one nearly got me. I took a sip of coffee instead. Finally I said, You don't have to call me your mother, I know. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, That's different from you not being one. We didn't hug, not then. And somehow that made it more real. The estate plan stayed exactly as I'd signed it. Lauren never asked me to change it. Carol eventually came around too. One afternoon over lunch she said Robert probably would have argued with you for 3 days. Only 3, she laughed. It was the first conversation we'd had about him in months that didn't feel like somebody was putting him on the witness stand. Spring came. One afternoon I was changing purses when I found a small folded square in an inside pocket. I'd forgotten it was there. I opened it. You're not my mother. You're on your own. I stood there reading it. Those words had changed a lot. My will. Lauren's house purchase. The way I thought about Robert. Mostly though they changed the way I thought about generosity. I carried the note into Robert's old office and fed it into the little shredder beside his desk. Lauren had been right about one thing. No adult child should be another adult's entire plan for old age. But family couldn't mean you're on your own when you might need something from me, and we're family when I need something from you. I didn't need to disinherit Lauren to learn that. I needed to stop confusing love with rescue. Today she's still my stepdaughter. Sometimes she calls me Diane. Every once in a while, usually when she's distracted, she calls me Mom. Neither of us mentions it. Our relationship isn't what I once imagined it was. In some ways it's smaller, but it's more honest, and nobody has to prove anything with a check anymore. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that a healthy boundary doesn't have to end a family. Sometimes it's the first chance that family has to become real. If you've ever had to draw a boundary with someone you love, I'd be interested to hear what you learned from it. And if this story stayed with you, you're always welcome to join me for the next one.